Hi, I'm Virginie Atkins from Modern Designs, and today I want to talk about samplers. I've been collecting samplers for several years now and doing reproductions of them, and I give it a little thought. What is so special about samplers? What is it that I like so much about them? And I came up with 4 different reasons, and I'll explain them a little bit. The first one is the aesthetic of them. Most samplers are very aesthetic. They're pleasing to see. They have regular rows of alphabets and borders and small motifs, so they're very attractive. And people like to have them framed. They're fun to reproduce. Unlike a big picture, there's lots of small details and points of interest in a sampler. Something about samplers that is truly unique, unlike other types of embroidery, is that they're very personal. For example, this one here. It was stitched by Ellen Blomfield. She was 11 years old when she stitched it in 1871. It gives you information about the stitcher. It tells you something about them. It was a girl, it tells the age, and sometimes it even tells the place where they made the sampler, the school where they made it, or the city they lived in. This one here is quite old, and there's a nice little poem on it. Thanks to my friends for their care of my breeding, who taught me be time to love working and reading. And it was made by Mary Holt when she was 13 years old. So she stitched a little rhyme saying thank you to her family, or her teacher, or the person who taught her. This one here has been quite an interesting point of discussion. It's a sampler stitched in 1899 by Marie Agenot. And as you can see on the corner here, there's an Eiffel Tower. So this coincides with the time when there was the Universal Exposition in Paris, when they put up the Eiffel Tower. But also on the sampler it says Souvenir de Pagnan. Pagnan, I've looked it up, is a small vacation place you can go to with a castle. So in this sampler she put things that probably were relevant to her at the time. We don't know much about her. I wasn't able to find any information about her, but Paris and Pagnan being quite far away from each other, maybe it's souvenirs from her summer vacation, or there's a meaning to it. This one here is quite an interesting one. It's a Norwegian sampler, and it's very well preserved with bright colors. And it says on it, Astrid, 7th grade, 1913, the Christian private school. And there's a Norwegian flag on it. So that again is very personal. You know her name, where she went to school, and also the place where she went to school, and the date. So a sampler is quite personal and has a lot of information. Another thing about samplers that's very special is the nostalgic qualities to them. This one here is a morning sampler. It's quite sad, in loving memory of Annie Simpson, aged 1 year and 9 months. It was stitched in memory of a little girl who died. So samplers have a nostalgic feel to them. It reminds you of time, days gone by, it reminds you of your childhood. Samplers also can remind you, for example, of when you came home from school and you brought your parents a little something you stitched or created or drew or made, and your parents liked it so much they kept it and treasured it. And some of these samplers, like this is a typical school sampler, parents must have kept them quite as a prized possession because they have survived so long, and textiles don't do so well. So that they've been kept so long meant that parents were very proud of their child. Maybe their child was very proud of what they had accomplished. And that's the nostalgic feel to it. We kind of look back to our own childhood and see ourselves also in those memories, even though we live in a very different time and age. Something that is very special about samplers, and that I think hasn't been maybe thought enough about, is the alphabet. Most samplers are the alphabet. In French you call them abécédaires, which basically means alphabets. And what's so special about the alphabet? Well, most samplers were stitched by school children originally. Some were stitched by slightly older people, maybe mothers, sisters. Some are in commemoration, like this one here. It says Hommage à mes parents. It's got the name of the girl's parents. It's very fragile, so I can barely lift it. When they were married, and information. So that was not a school sampler, but it's based a bit on the same. words and letters. And what's so special about the alphabet? Well, learning to read is the basic for all education. So practicing your letters, practicing in writing, reading, or stitching them, it would be kind of a reminder that this is what education is all about. It's learning to write and read. It's learning to communicate, to collect information, to preserve information with writing. And I've been working at a school for many years, and I know that for parents, one of the biggest milestones for their children is when they learn to read, and then when they learn to write. It's almost like the most important thing is learning to read. So I think samplers are a good reminder of how important it is to read, to write, and preserving of information. And at the same time, they're a little time capsule into a time of innocence, where things were a little bit simpler, when people lived their life in a different way. So this is a bit the reason why I like samplers, and maybe you have other reasons. So put it in the comments and tell me why the reasons why you like samplers and why you like to stitch or do reproductions of them.